Hello, and welcome back to the L1 show. Ooh woo, today is Valentine's Day.
You're already too late.
What? Oh, yeah. If you had to get a gift for someone, yeah.
It'll be the night before if they're in our time zone. So they still can
panic. Yeah.
The problem is with the new, post-pandemic policies, the stores are not open right now for you. So you got to get there first thing in the morning and it's going to be all the flowers that are picked over, smashed.
Well, unfortunately, flowers are blooming right now that shouldn't be, like tulips and daffodils. We were talking about that a minute ago.
Here's my recommendation. If you have somebody who's really important to you, the number one gift you want to give them is those little chalky hearts. That says
the antacids, yeah.
Ugh, those are worse than vitamins.
What makes you feel more romantic than government and security news?
Do we have the nonsense story about the CGI on-screen kissing?
I don't think so.
Oh, I don't think I saw that.
It was, movies were shot during the thing, and it's like, an actor was like, that's weird. I totally didn't kiss that actress in the kissing scene for the thing.
And they just, compiled it.
And they apparently just CGI'd it because apparently the union was like, no physical contact during, whatever it was, whatever they were shooting because of the thing.
That sounds like somebody's been sleeping on adding their articles to the list.
I've been sleeping a lot lately, yes. That's correct.
That seasonal depression hit hard.
Well, unfortunately, we are, when you have the weekly cycle, we record 1 day a week. Some of you don't realize that. And
we don't wear the same outfit 3 days in a row.
You miss.
Speak for yourself.
Often Friday afternoon, something big happens and you miss it all. And by the time you get back around to it, it's kind of stale, but we might as well mention it.
The balloon that we mentioned last week, it was shot down. We kind of mentioned that last week, but yeah, it was shot down.
The balloon story happened. No, because the balloon story happened Friday, and then I think it was either Saturday or Sunday they shot it down.
I think I mentioned that they were planning to shoot it down.
Well, we all anticipated that they would, yeah. Because no way they were just going to let it float out over the Atlantic. They waited till it was over the ocean.
And we collected it.
Yeah, we collected it. We don't know everything about it. Now, by the time you watch this,
we'll probably know everything.
We'll probably know so much more. But for now, not too much.
U.S. officials disclose new details about the balloon's capabilities. Here's what we know. Is this the last article on the balloon, or do we have yet another balloon article?
It's been the hot topic of conversation this week.
Well, we kind of.
Yeah.
So after the balloon happened, we went back in time and we looked at some records. Obviously, somebody panicked. Turns out there's been lots of balloons, and we've known about them, but we haven't known about them. The public was never told about it. Apparently, the sitting president was never told about it. Pretty much nobody was told about it who should have been told. And now we're digging even deeper into the records.
Classified U.S. report highlighted foreign power surveillance with advanced technology using balloons. Now, I don't know if it was in this article because I read a lot about the balloon and the capabilities and blah, blah, blah. And what was going on. There were balloons in the past, but nobody knew. But then some people knew, but then some people decided. And apparently there were a couple people that were not military intelligence people that were trying to say, hey, there's some unidentified aerial phenomenon going on here. And somebody inside the Department of Defense thought that was a UFO crank, when in fact it was these balloons.
I mean, technically it was a UFO, unidentified flying object.
But apparently there's a stigma with those, and we don't investigate those or take them seriously necessarily.
Now that's a very, that's a rose-colored glasses way of looking at it. I think the scarier way of looking at it, which, let's go back in history, is the scarier way not almost always the way that it is. General Milley, it's Milley, not Molly, right?
I think so.
Was on record saying, China is not our enemy. And he would have been the man to make the decision about whether or not we shine a light.
There may have been some money that changed hands there. Are you saying that?
I'm not saying that. I'm asking you to draw your own conclusions based on historical precedent. And obviously this was already happening, but boy, has this supercharged the anti-China effort.
U.S. aims to curtail technology investment in China. Once again, Tim Cook knew about this ahead of time. Remember when we reported he was moving a bunch of stuff out of China to the Philippines? Just as a precaution. They're like a year ahead of the game here. How is that possible?
You think he got a memo on the balloon?
Yeah, I think he got a memo.
So this, obviously we're already doing this with the chips and stuff. Last week we talked about, we moved down into not just the higher end chips, but even stuff like, the low level controllers and stuff like that. Like, no, you will do nothing with China. This takes it even further of even bond funds and investment companies, and even we're pushing overseas countries. It's like, no, you will not invest either. No one will invest in China.
There's a dimension of this that many of you may not be considering, which is also Hong Kong. There were some interesting things around manufacture in China prior to the events of Hong Kong the last couple of years. And so a lot of the American companies, also seeing the writing on the wall, move stuff from China to Hong Kong. But then with China moving into Hong Kong, that sort of nullified that. And so like having PCBs made in China and then populated with soldered components and stuff in Hong Kong, that solved a lot of like security issues and that sort of thing. Because if somebody in China changed the PCB in a subtle way, the people in Hong Kong would probably let you know. That's not really the case anymore. And that's also the type of investment being curtailed by this. So if you're doing business in an ongoing way, that's also frowned upon and probably outlawed soon if the trajectory continues, which is crazy.
It's annoying that it's taken them this long to be like, maybe having everything outsourced to another country was a national security concern.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah,
Think about how many years of suffering there has been in like the interior of the country where like everything was based around manufacturing and then all that went overseas and everyone was like, oh, it's fine, it's cheaper. And now
that was old man Clinton.
Well,
he gave us this rotten egg. And the State of the Union happened. There was a bit of a balloon-shaped shadow over it. But clearly, the speechwriters didn't have much time to pivot. They had another topic to talk about during the State of the Union.
Biden rallies against big tech in State of the Union address. The president called for stricter privacy protections and for Congress to strengthen U.S. antitrust law. I think they might be too big to antitrust.
I mean, it's fair. We should do that, but the cat's kind of out of the bag, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, literally, these companies are already so large that they're intractable. I mean, if we're going to bail out mortgage companies, we've already lost. There is nothing that we can do short of supplanting those technology companies with new, worse technology companies.
Well, the FTC got the memo, and they're ready.
Amazon reportedly facing FTC antitrust investigation.
No other details.
Only 20 years late.
I mean, we can guess what these antitrust arguments are because we've seen them from every European country on the planet, but yeah.
It's pretty crazy when the FTC wakes up and says, hey, wait
a minute. Everyone goes to Amazon for stuff.
And this is another story that's going to make you take a hate nap.
And this was supposed to be, the amazing thing here is like, you would see this and it's like, well, we've seen it before, but this was supposed to be, it's like, no, this time we're not doing that again. We're doing the real map this time and don't screw around. You will not screw around with this map. And they're like, of course we won't. Why would we ever do that? Why would you accuse us of that? We wouldn't do it.
Comcast gave false map data to the FCC and didn't admit it until Ars Technica got involved. So Ars Technica, all they did was they went to the Comcast website and they plugged in addresses to see if Comcast said, yes, we serve that address. And they found a bunch of addresses that the website said, no, we don't serve there. And the FCC map data says, oh, yes, they do. And so they found a telecom engineer. Imagine that, a telecom engineer probably even watches this program. That type of person shows up, checks the FCC website, and it says, that's weird. Comcast says they serve my address. They don't. Why would Comcast lie about that? To get federal money.
Which is what they've always been doing. Which is why this whole new push is pointless as long as we let them be the ones that report it.
As much as we report on how easy it is for the Department of Justice to subpoena business records, why doesn't the Department of Justice or the FCC just subpoena the database that's powering the website? And it's like, under penalty of perjury, this is the database that is powering the website. And they can just take that with their own technical people and plug that into the FCC website. And then it'll be really easy to craft a select statement to find out how many exactly addresses are in the one database, but not the other. And that will tell us how egregiously that they're lying. And it's going to be very egregious.
They would fight to the death not to give up that data.
Yeah.
And they would argue that it's a trade secret and they would win.
It's literally criminal what they're doing.
And if you're wondering how do they keep getting away with this, it's obvious. It's because money changes hands, deals are made. Some people benefit from screwing everybody.
This Vice article is amazing, disgusting. New York City scraps co-op internet and public housing so big telecom can move in. So picture this. You work for a telecommunications company in New York City, and the working conditions are awful, and you go on strike. And why do you go on strike? It's because subscribers are paying an obscene amount of money. You aren't making a lot of money. And you look around and you say, gosh, if I just run the wires and have a little community-led co-op, our life would be better, the internet would be better, people would have better service, and it would cost way less. And that's exactly what they did. But then New York City is saying, hey, for people that are in city housing, why don't we just have Charter do it? Because they can do it cheaper. And it's like, this is free service. Not only that, all the people that are in this housing have been Charter customers before. And they said, no, this is not going to end well because Charter's a literally awful company. We really like the co-op doing these things. But, you know, the mayor is, the article paints the picture of the mayor being behind all of this. But it's insane. It's literally insane.
Mayor probably being paid to be behind it.
I get why Louis Rossmann complains about corruption in New York, because this is an excellent chronicle of something that is obviously corrupt to a non-New Yorker. And it's like, why is this a complicated situation? Anybody with brain one could look at this and say, something ain't right.
The other big thing that the government has for a while been ready to pull the trigger on, they were just waiting for that big catastrophe. FTX was that catastrophe. It is crypto. And they were warming up to it, but that changed literally overnight. And now it seems the government is back to hating everything about crypto.
Coinbase's CEO cites rumors, quote unquote, that the SEC may ban crypto staking for retail customers because that's a security, they say, and people shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's just madness.
So the argument was this is bad for the environment. So the crypto people are like, okay, let's go to a staking method. Then it won't be as bad for the environment. And then the government was like, that's a security. You will be banned.
You followed into our trap.
We control the money, and we control more than just the money. Do we control energy on a global scale by any cost?
What an amazing transition. This is Seymour Hersh's Substack, How America Took Out the Nord Stream Pipeline. Now, Seymour Hersh, if you're not familiar, he's actually a really accomplished journalist.
Ex-New York Times, Pulitzer winner.
He's gotten a little sketchy the last few years. I don't know if I agree with his assessment on the
think
whole.
we have every reason to do this. I don't know if I believe his account.
Do you remember when Biden said, if Russia invades Ukraine, we will stop the Nord Stream pipeline? And the reporter was like, how are you going to do that? You're not involved. And he said, we will stop it.
I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I don't know if I believe his particular account of things.
Why?
Because he has one source and he won't name it.
Because that would get that guy killed immediately.
But he sits here and goes into detail about all these meetings, and they definitely occurred, and this is exactly what was said. And it's like, well, that's going to narrow down who it is anyway.
I mean, it's very plausible, but I think a more interesting thing is going to come out of this story in that a lot of the big tech platforms and things like that will suppress it. It's
Reuters already covered it.
Well, I mean, but the big tech platforms only want to cover it in a very specific way. If you look at other things that reference this post, a lot of them are really, really sort of straw man arguments against Hersh. And like, there is, I mean, I don't really find his account of the whole bin Laden thing credible, but maybe, I don't know. Historically, there's stuff even in this article that, what is it? Stoltenberg did something or other with some other group, but they would have been
in high school at the time, and it's like, I
don't know.
So yeah, like his end conclusion, I could definitely see the U.S. doing it, but not for the reasons this guy describes.
I don't know. I'd say based on the last 2.5 minutes, the disinformation campaign has been quite successful.
You just want to believe what you want to believe.
What if he's been X-filed?
What does that have to do with it? I don't care if we blew it up. That's bad. I don't want that.
Yeah.
What if he's been X-filed? He's like Mulder.
You like conspiracies, though.
Well, no.
I think that's a conspiracy.
Like the smoking guy is like feeding Mulder some good information and some bad information, and this guy's Mulder. Maybe, I don't know.
No.
I would be that guy. They would feed me some truth and some lies and be like, I don't know what's real anymore, and that would be a very effective.
I find the most effective filter is the K Bono filter. Who else benefits from this?
Yeah.
Right. That's why I think it's credible that we did it, but.
And we have, this is not directly tech related, but it kind of is because, as we've mentioned in the past, in order to have technology, you need electricity. And in order to create electricity, You got to have water. And in order
Humans
to
need
have
water to live.
data centers, lots of other things, you got to have that water. And oh boy, are we running out.
Western states that rely on the Colorado River fail to reach agreement for cutting consumption. Why do we need to cut consumption? It's because there's a lot of water that's not making it down the Colorado River anymore.
We have had some incredible rain this season, which is great. But even if we had seasons like that for many years in a row, it still would not refill all of the reservoirs we need.
Aren't we running at like a 10-year deficit at this point?
Yes.
That's disconcerting.
Yeah, and considering this year's going to be an El Nino event, it'll probably be a little bit warmer, which means more evaporation. People are just cruising, not paying attention.
And yet we keep building new housing developments
Yeah.
in these states. We keep bringing in more and more people. Gosh, I wish we wouldn't. Maybe the answer is to not bring in as many humans and maybe some extraterrestrials. Move them in there. I bet they would come up with some really fun ways to get water.
As a U.S. Navy fighter pilot, I witnessed unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Congress must reveal the truth to the American people. This is from thehill.com. And this is also really interesting because those balloons that we talked about,
Those are UFOs.
and they went into file 13 the first couple times that happened. The pilots that reported those that turned out to be balloons, not unlike the one that we just shot down, were the same kind of stuff. And, people got a hard time for trying to report it and classify it and, sort of run it up the chain.
He claims that he's talked to other pilots and he says that, there's the stigma. They don't really talk about it, but literally every time they go up, the skies are apparently just full of the unknown. But they report it and they get sort of smacked down and they're like, okay, I won't do that again. But now that he's out, he said we got to do something about this because clearly it's not aliens this time. It's something we should have looked at. But
Before now, like 10 years ago.
Now think about this and think about Bigfoot.
what country do you think is behind Bigfoot?
Tibet.
that
It's the
right?
Yeti. They sent the Yeti here.
Bigfoot is a UFO operator. That would be amazing.
Now here in the U.S., we got the HIPAA laws, which is, it's so that you don't have to worry about your medical information being spread around, because that's really private and it could really affect you if other people know things about your medical situation. And in the last couple of years, we kind of saw that just thrown to the side. People were allowed to ask about one very specific kind of medical record that you had with impunity, which should have been illegal and was clearly the start of the slippery slope.
Little known Maryland law requires people with sleep apnea to report diagnosis to driving authorities. Why? Because you could just fall asleep at the wheel.
Well, they argue that if you are severely sleep deprived, as people with severe sleep apnea often are, you would be impaired behind the wheel of the vehicle.
But the thing about it is, this guy did not tell the DMV about that.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anybody about it. And then he got a letter or something, and he was like, wait, how do you know this? And the answer was, we're not going to tell you that.
That's the problem.
It was clearly the doctor or the medical facility or whatever.
Something, yeah.
And there's
gets
clearly
reported.
a reporting mechanism, but we're not allowed to know about it.
Yeah, that's my problem. I don't have a problem with them requiring you to report certain things. Like, I have to have a mark on my license that's like, this person is blind. If she doesn't have contacts or glasses in, she should not be behind the wheel of a vehicle.
They literally won't pay your eye doctor's insurance claims unless they get a copy of your retina, which is insane.
Oh, that healthcare industry. It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, you should, it's fine if they just want you to tell them, but like, why just force it? But that's the world we live in now.
Force it surreptitiously. That's
Yeah.
the danger.
And we've been hearing a lot more about spy applications. We got those Israeli companies that are getting a lot of heat because it turned out everybody in Europe and the government was being spied on. But there's another level to that, the pleb level, that until now has not really gotten much attention.
Stalkerware maker fined $410,000 and compelled to notify victims. This is from the EFF. So the application, if it's still installed anywhere, is supposed to pop up and say, hey, by the way, I'm installed. I'm just monitoring everything. Because it turns out that most people that were using this software were using it without the consent or notification to the people that were affected.
I think that was part of the feature list, right?
Yeah.
Undetectable. Unfortunately, that is only in New York right now. Probably the other states will pick up on that, don't you think? kind of a no-brainer, but it is government, so who knows? And Utah, oh boy, I wish we should do a counter. Like, it has been X days since
It would always just be a 0.
free speech was trampled for the children.
Larry Magid, Magid, I don't know how you say that name. Utah bill threatens internet security for everybody. Once again, legislation masquerading under the guise of safety could erode freedom and privacy. Once again, we have a law written by people that don't understand how the technology even works.
So the idea here, just like the old porn laws, is that everybody to use social media, which they included YouTube in that as well. I was sitting there thinking, well, that doesn't affect me. Wait a minute, YouTube.
Yeah.
You have to put ID on file. So they got to copy your driver's license, basically, to prove that you are who you say you are and that you are as old as you say you are. And everybody would have to do it.
My thing with that is, like, do they not understand? I guess everyone who has access to an account would have to do that, because, like, for our YouTube channel, all 3 of us can access it. Would it be okay if it was just one person's license, or do we all need to submit it?
That's probably not even allowed in the terms of service.
Yeah, they probably have no idea. No, because YouTube provides, like, a way for you to have multiple people log in.
They would want us to use our individual accounts and get designated as an administrator. So there's a way to do that. Which is,
They'd have to rewrite everything to make that work so that the licenses and stuff will work.
But more importantly, it means that all these tech companies would have a database
Right.
that's going to get leaked.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous.
Or in the case of California, the DMV just sells their database. I wonder
for the right price.
I wonder if anybody can buy Maryland's database and figure out people's medical information from that. That might spur some federal agency into action, because then your medical information was in the DMV database.
Do you think it's just a check mark, or is it like the full file? Like, this person does have sleep apnea, or does it have everything listed?
Oh, there's probably several fields, right?
Yeah.
Just,
Oh, yeah. Like vision impairment would be one.
epilepsy
Yeah.
is one. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of them. Probably, questioning the government,
Yeah.
mental disability.
Yeah. I just assume that I'm on a list somewhere.
And the SEC has been striking out against the crypto companies, and it scored a win here.
Kraken agreed to shutter U.S. crypto staking operations to settle SEC charges. Well, that fits with the earlier story about the SEC wanting to do away with all forms of staking.
Is Ethereum next?
Hmm.
And over in the UK, they just busted another locked down crypto phone ring, and they infiltrated it and they monitored it and they arrested a ton of people. But that's not enough for them. They want to go even further.
UK proposes making the sale and possession of encrypted phones illegal. Never let a crisis go to waste. And or, an upbeat, it's like, oh, we busted a drug ring. Let's also make encrypted phones illegal. But that would be bad.
These phones were marketed, as we've learned, as criminal phones. Like, they weren't.
Are you looking to do crime?
Basically. Yeah, basically. But the way this is worded, it wouldn't just stop that. It would stop any kind of encrypted communication based on a phone. So, not great.
Every week I'm just like, man, I should just disappear into the mountains and never
You can't.
come back.
It's
Yeah.
not possible anymore. Even the mountains got cameras now because you got the fire cameras. And the Brits are also racing headlong into dystopia as they get their digital currency. It looks like they might be the first, unless we get on the ball.
Britcoin digital currency could be in use by the end of the decade. I love the name Britcoin. That's amazing.
They've officially announced it will not be called Britcoin.
Oh, it'll be, what is it, McBoatface or whatever.
Coin face. And this is a terrible sort because this one should have come up in front of the other one.
European police arrest 42 after cracking a covert application.
So this was the app that prompted the proposed ban on encrypted phone services. And
So I have a question for you Europeans. If the police had to go through some amount of work to crack into this encrypted phone network, does that imply that they don't really have to do that with things that are not the encrypted phone network?
yeah, they just call them up. Yeah, we've seen so many examples of that.
So you got your end-to-end encrypted Apple phone, and it's apparently not just anybody can walk in there and
you got to think if they found, like hundreds of people using this thing, there's got to be tens of thousands using the iPhone for crime, right?
yeah.
Maybe not as sophisticated.
Isn't that interesting?
Are crime rings going to have to start communicating only in emojis?
I'm not sure what the best way would be. The problem is you have to let the other person in on the scheme.
Right.
And that there's always
You
going
need
to
a
be,
decoder ring to understand.
but there's always going to be a Fed
Yeah.
on the other end at some point. You don't know who to trust because,
You're in a crime ring. Yeah.
well, you could probably trust it if it was just the criminals. But once the government gets in there, you can't trust anybody. And politicians in Europe are finding out, shockingly, that number one, no one thinks they do a good job. Number two, no one likes them. And number three, no one wants them anywhere near real business because they are utter failures at everything. So what are you going to do with these poor fellas?
Medals for MPs among ideas to attract fresh talent to Parliament. How about for attracting fresh talent to Parliament? You don't screw up. Watch this program. It's like, oh, should we do this really horribly idealistic thing that has no practical way of being implemented? Oh, yes.
I'll give you another scenario here. The problem is when they come out of Parliament, they don't have job skills because they don't do anything and they can't do anything. They're failures at everything. That's how they got into politics. So maybe we should be electing people who can already do something. And then they won't have to worry about that because they'll already have a skill. And then when they're done, they can go back to using that skill. Imagine that world.
The thing is none of them are ever done, right? They always stay in politics forever.
But some of them are leaving and they point out, it's like, I can't get a job. Everybody laughs at me. And the French are the latest to attack the talk.
French Senate to open commission of inquiry into TikTok. They've noticed their friends in the European Union looking around and saying, gosh, there's some alarming things here coming out of this. Maybe we should look into that.
Looking forward to the French riots, whichever way it goes, really.
The French people seem to have inadvertently summoned a balloon over their capital.
I bet there's plenty. And the Bitcoin lawsuits continue. This is like not the new Bitcoin lawsuits about the collapse. No, this is the original Bitcoin lawsuits about who owns it all.
Craig Wright loses a Bitcoin copyright claim. The computer scientist asserted that the forks, like Bitcoin Cash, violate his intellectual property rights. But it's dubious if he's got any stake in Bitcoin at all.
Yeah, if he was the creator of Bitcoin, isn't what he's doing now completely against the original? Yes. Did he just change his mind over like, complete 180? I didn't think that at the time.
Oops.
And so this is a paywall alternative because the original story here pointed out that chip making doesn't work with this.
Right.
So the UK and the EU in general, they're like, hey, we got to bring chips. We got to do chips here. You can't if you do this.
EU considers ban on quote unquote forever chemicals or just search for alternatives. Yeah, well, got some bad news about not just chip making, a lot of manufacturing.
Yeah, medical equipment, that kind of thing. There are certain things that single-use plastics are just necessary for, though I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to try to look for alternatives where we can.
Kentucky, Alabama, parts of Tennessee, and somewhere else are also some of the friendliest places for dealing with material like cadmium. And
friendliest meaning you can just dump it in a river and nobody cares.
Yeah, we have
arsenic.
Screw those hillbillies.
We have the Friends of Coal program.
Yeah.
They've got the Friends of Cadmium program.
What's a little bit of radioactivity between friends? There was somebody that pointed out, Germany's gone all anti-coal and anti-everything. And they pointed out that a lot of their subway stations have radioactive tile because they did the uranium. You remember back in the day when they would do uranium plates and things? Yeah. They have uranium glazed tile, and so there's a fair bit of radioactivity that comes off of from the mass transit system.
Yeah, and that really backfired on them because somebody blew up a pipeline. We don't know who.
Probably us, but we don't have any definitive proof yet.
And if there's one thing that you can depend on, like sun rises in the east and water is wet, Tim Cook will do whatever the Communist Party tells him to do.
Apple pulled a Damus, as in Nostr's Damus, from the App Store in China after a ridiculous government claim. So this is an open source, decentralized Twitter. That's all it is.
It's not, well, it's like, it's more like RSS.
Yeah.
It's more like Usenet with key pairs. And China took one look at that and they were like, nope, not here.
Do you think they invite Tim Cook to like parties and stuff just to watch him do like backflips and stuff? Do the worm, and he just gets on the floor immediately.
They're making him do like college hazing type stuff.
Seems likely.
Tim Cook comes into the room and like the top brass of the CCP come in, they've all got paddles.
Please don't ban us.
And China is used to making big demands, and they don't really care if those demands are outrageous. They do them anyway.
China wants its downed spy aircraft back. Oh, inflammatory headline, saying it does not belong to the U.S.
Let's do a timeline of first it was that's not ours. Then it was it's just a weather balloon.
Civilian
I don't know
weather balloon.
Yeah, civilian. I don't know why you're freaking out. And now it's give us back our aircraft.
I don't know. I really want to see a detailed analysis of the hardware that they found, but I'll probably never see that.
Now, the Chinese apps, we don't have them here. We might if we didn't crack down on them, but
TikTok.
even well, we got TikTok, but these are a little more hands-on than TikTok. But in India, they did not have the same curbs, and oh boy, is it costing them.
Chinese influence and loan collection practices are reasons for India's crackdown on lending firms. So this was a way to sort of get, cultural control, because you could do microloans with these apps for microloans, but then Chinese people would sort of break out and do things with them. And you say that we don't have these apps, but there were a couple apps. The Chinese jail thing that we reported on, that was kind of a thing in Canada. Like there were these things set up in Canada where if you were a Chinese national, like people would come knock on your door and be like, hey, just because you're in Canada doesn't mean we're not watching. We see you. I mean, that would be unsettling, right? And some of the tracking and that sort of thing was done through some apps that were set up that those people would be likely to download.
Be careful who you borrow money from.
Yeah.
Be careful what app you borrow money from. Maybe just don't borrow money.
If you
Maybe
can,
be a saver. And Pakistan has been having a row with Wikipedia. It had to do with what they described as some sort of sacrilege that was posted. I don't remember exactly what it was. Do you? Yeah, it was.
It could be anything because people can change the articles.
It was fairly benign. I remember looking it up and being like, "Oh, really that?" But no, they were serious about it, and it looks like that cooler heads maybe have prevailed.
Wikipedia unblocked in Pakistan after Prime Minister's intervention. The Prime Minister said, it's Wikipedia. Come on. It's making us look bad on the world stage."
He actually has a paper due, and he's like, I really need some sources to put in my paper.
And a rare headline out of South America, I had to do a whole new section in the source.
Just for that.
Just for little old Colombia, because they have done a first with ChatGPT.
A judge just used ChatGPT to make a court decision.
Not feeling real positive about it.
It didn't make...
It didn't make the decision per se. I think he used it to like write out his thoughts, maybe.
He asked it some questions.
Yeah.
And like talking about, is an autistic minor exonerated from paying fees for their therapies? And has the jurisprudence of the Constitutional Court made favorable decisions in similar cases? So he took ChatGPT's answers to those two questions, didn't vet them, as far as I know, and then made his decision. So bad information could have still...
We're all doomed.
Yeah, that's...
ChatGPT, like, there was somebody that did a similar thing with scientific analysis, and then they looked at all the references and found all the references were just completely fictitious. They were synthesized. It wasn't real.
But also, once, we're going to get some indicator of how they're training, because they're going to be trained on public data, right?
Yeah.
You can't have a private database that's going to be enough. And just like SEO,
DeviantArt would like to know your location.
There's going to be whole swaths of the web that are just designed to feed the AI.
Yeah.
With bad
information, right?
Every other sentence is, have you tried Shasta? Shasta is amazing.
It's the internet. It's bots. It's Buy bots for bots.
You
Let's
talking
just
about,
take the human element out of the internet.
you talking about the off-brand soda?
Yeah.
What a weird reference. Does that still exist?
What is the off-brand soda brand?
Shasta?
Yeah. Shasta.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like that's how they come back is that some, the last person who owns the brand, puts it in the search and then all of a sudden it comes back. Hey, it worked for Champion, the Kmart brand. And it is back with a passion.
Big K.
Well, the balloon has certainly captured the hearts and minds of people, maybe turned them against China. It was a really unpleasant thing. It's something that we'd been kind of ignoring. And when I say we, I mean world leaders. And it was just right there in everybody's face.
You can't ignore it when people are taking pictures of it on their phones.
And the Aussies are right there in their backyard, and they are really heavily infiltrated, it seems. And now they're reluctantly having to make some admissions.
Australia orders checks on Chinese-made cameras in defense offices. Turns out the lowest bidder might not have been
The best bidder.
the best option
Yeah.
for the defense offices. Oh, no.
I kind of like the idea of having cameras on that, but they're never going to show the people that, right? So why have them? Who's that for? Just the next level up of brass?
Security theater.
That's I'm pretty sure that wasn't that half of the terror aspect in like 1984, and some of that is like you never knew if anyone was behind the monitor actually watching when you went in to do your stuff. It's like, is anybody paying attention to what you're doing?
And if you are from Australia and that infuriates you, I can understand that. And perhaps one way that you could calm down is get yourself some pills.
Australia to allow prescription of MDMA and psilocybin for treatment-resistant mental illness.
Severe depression, I think, was the article's description.
Yeah, the headline just dawned on me. Treatment-resistant mental illnesses. That's yeah.
Maybe the world we live in is so terrible, that's why everyone has a mental illness.
Now, you do have to have a therapist or I don't know what the...
Someone who's
credentials.
monitoring your dosage.
Somebody in mental health has to prescribe that to you, diagnose you with one of those illnesses, prescribe that to you, and you got to be in like a controlled situation while you
Right.
get high. So
To avoid a bad trip.
can't have those bad trips. Those are terrible. And when it comes to online privacy, if you watch this show, apparently you are way ahead of the curve, like light years away, because oh boy, are these answers astonishing.
Americans flunked this test in online privacy, and now you can take it too. Many consumers
Enter your information here.
Many consumers want to control over their personal details, but few understand how online tracking works, a new report says from the University of Pennsylvania. Also, have you considered supporting us on Patreon and Flowplane, where we get your name, address, and credit card details? Thank you.
Store.level1text.com.
We're going to be reporting that to your DMV. So yeah, you can go through the New York Times here. They get all the questions. The questions were really basic. Some of them were a little bit promising. They're, like more than half were on the right side of it, but some of them were astonishingly bad.
We should keep KVMs to London, and the police, the constabulary shows up at your doors. You got a license,
for the KVM. No, it's what was I gonna say? I see a lot of people on Facebook in particular where they're like, my account got hacked again. I don't know how this keeps happening, but then they post like quizzes and like images that ask for personal information constantly, and I'm like, that's how it's happening. Stop posting that stuff.
Well, you're on Facebook in the first place,
Right.
I mean, you've already lost. We've learned that Internet of Things devices, the manufacturers basically don't care about security. They really are just for you to buy, and then in 2 years, you're expected to stop using it because it's garbage. But the problem is ongoing security. How do we deal with that? Well, maybe this will work.
The U.S. NIST unveils a winning encryption algorithm of the IoT data protection contest.
There it is. Behold it. This is a lightweight one because you're expected to have really crappy hardware in that stuff. But supposedly still secure. We'll see.
I really don't think we can make the Internet of Things secure until we separate, like, this is a sensor for this piece of data, and this is a display for this type of data. And then the thing that actually does the computation or actions based on that, that's the thing that can change every 2 years. But when you install your, hot water heater sensor or your water flow sensor or your garage door sensor or whatever, that's designed to be there for 30 years. We just don't have that.
They hate that.
Yeah, they do hate that because they want to make a new sale every time.
I mean, if we had used Ethernet or something for that 30-year standard, it would be 10 megabit Ethernet. Like modern gigabit and 2.5 gigabit switches dubiously even work at 10 megabit, even though it's still the Ethernet standard.
Well, we got to give the register a hand on this one because in the headline, they didn't come out and say it, but they did admit they used the word more because it's not a situation of like China does this and we don't. No, everybody. Every phone maker does this and they do it to a horrible extent. But China is the number one.
Surprise! China's top Android phones collect way more info. Best to revisit the plan to bring home a cheap OnePlus, Xiaomi, Oppo, or Realme handset from your holiday.
We're going to be demonetized because you said China number one.
I'm surprised OnePlus was on this list, given the number of people that are working on their firmware that is, it's a worldwide team, from what I understand.
It's also interesting. They did a variety of, they kept pulling functionality away from the phone. They changed the SIM. They put it on a different network. They basically stripped everything from the phone except for Wi-Fi access, and it was still doing everything it could to get back to Beijing. Not a surprise. And Android, also horribly, horribly insecure. They've taken one tiny step. We talked about this last week. This is official.
Android 14 Preview 1 is out and will officially ban installation of old apps. Google kicks off monthly releases of Android 14 Developer Preview. So if you want to try to install an old buggy app that's known to have a vulnerability that can be used to exfiltrate data, nope.
And we got once in a while, they will catch a prolific hacker. This fella did a very embarrassing, stupid thing to get caught.
Finland's most wanted hacker nabbed in France. Look at him. He looks so angry.
He looks very Finnish, doesn't he?
He was in Paris, though.
So what got him? Well, he posted, he did a ransomware, didn't get paid, and decided to post the material to punish them. Left his home folder in that.
Oops.
Yeah. So the cops were able to connect some dots there and pick him up. You want to double check your archive before you send it. Proofread.
Oh, that was // not dot. Oh no, for the tar command. No.
Now he's
I'm going
in
to prison for 30 years. And you know who should be in prison? Microsoft. Because they just keep forcing themselves into our private places that we don't want them.
Microsoft swears it's not coming for your data with scan for old Office versions. What? This is a Windows update that's looking for Office? What?
If it finds Office 2007, it will get rid of it because that's insecure. And also, you need to pay for the new one.
Yeah. What if it starts doing it with the free Office alternatives too?
Oh my God. It's eventually that's where we're going with this.
And they'll just do it quietly and hope no one notices.
And we had the Tyre, is it Tyre or Tyree? It's Tyre, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Tyre Nichols. Maybe I got that wrong. Anyway, he was beaten to death by cops. And that has sort of tipped us all off to the fact that it's like, wait a minute, but was that a homeowner's camera? No, that was a government run camera. And they are everywhere.
Memphis's Sky Cop cameras couldn't prevent Tyre Nichols' beating death.
But that doesn't mean we're going to stop using them. It means we're going to get more and more and more of them. They're always watching.
Was that the one where the body cam cameras told a very different story than the light post cameras?
They were very good at, what they were saying, what they were screaming had nothing to do with what they were doing. And with the body cam, with all the commotion, you could be like, oh, he's fighting them. But when you saw it from the top down, he was basically limp. And they were just beating him viciously. And if you are a young student who is particularly adept at technology, this might be a fun one for you because you can do whatever you want with that Chromebook that they give you.
Google looking into fix Shimmer, or SH1MMER, exploit that can unenroll Chromebooks. So if you got a corporate Chromebook and it's stolen, it's not really useful. It's pretty locked down, except there's bugs in that, because obviously. So you can exploit the bug, unenroll the Chromebook, and then sell the Chromebook on the used market.
Or use it for your own purposes. Whatever you want to do. That'll be a nice little taxpayer-funded Chromebook for you.
If anybody ever figures out how to do that with Apple laptops, they're going to be able to make a mint.
And I'm sure that the Google engineers are working on fixing that right now. But you know what they're not working on? Security for the ad portion of their site.
Till further notice, think twice before using Google to download software.
You'll be trapped inside of the machine like this person in the stock image.
Over the past month, Google has been outgunned by malvertisers with new tricks. I searched for Rufus the other day, and the first 6 or 7 links were all malware.
You can't ever trust the ads.
No.
Yeah. Well, it was like 3 ads and 3 real links, and it's just like the black hat SEO is winning over the real stuff.
It's almost like it's just a game, and you just pack it full of random keywords and other stuff to make it pop up top.
I'm sure Bard will solve all of that.
Yeah.
With its AI supremacy. And here's an interesting one that came from Ubiquity Hack. Remember the Ubiquity Hack? Well, we now know who was responsible for that, and it's not the usual suspects.
Developer pleads guilty to hacking his own company after pretending to investigate himself.
I love this picture. I think we've had a similar illustration before. I love that it's just like a mysterious figure holding a folder.
I like that the folder is so surprised.
Yeah.
This is the Ubiquity break-in from like 2 or 3 years ago. So, expose some maybe not ideal best practices inside of Ubiquity, but it doesn't appear to not have been an inside job. So
he was using Surfshark VPN, which is hilarious because that's the one all the YouTube channels advertise.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're good or not, but most VPN apps, they got the little checkbox that's like, if you lose VPN access, kill the connection. Do not fall back to the real IP address. Apparently he didn't check that. Or maybe Surfshark doesn't offer that. And his VPN service failed and the real IP got through. And they got him.
Subscribe to Wired to continue reading.
Oh, come on.
You may cancel at any time.
We can still scroll. Oh, this is about Telegram. Yeah. Okay. Telegram is so if you're not going to use the for crime communications things, maybe you're going to use Signal or Telegram. Well, you might want to think twice about that one too.
The Kremlin has entered the chat. It's weird. This is a Wired article about how it's weird the Kremlin seems to know what resistance people inside of Russia are doing that use Telegram, the app. It's almost like the Kremlin has an idea of what's going on inside of Telegram, which is an encrypted application, and it's not supposed to be possible to see what's going on, and yet here they are.
So the way this played out, according to the woman who, was relaying this information, she said that she posted some dissident type stuff, and then at like 4 a.m., there was a banging on her door, and she was like, oh God, I know who that is. I'm going to pretend I'm not here. And she jumped on Telegram to her group, and she was like, they're at my door, but I don't think that they'll break in. They did. And then when they had her in the interrogation room, the detective read all that back to her. And he was like, wow. You know how we knew you were there? It was because of Telegram. They were listening the entire time. Terrifying. And oh boy, these hotels and booking companies, they are some of the absolute worst when it comes to data security.
Mysterious leak of Booking.com reservation data is being used to scam customers, according to Ars Technica, on an ongoing basis.
Now, they have some really, really convincing phishing emails and stuff here. And this is because the Booking.com system lets you email through Booking.com as the hotel. Mm. And somehow all of that has been compromised. So now they're using that as a vector to try and phish you.
PSA, don't click on stuff.
Booking confirmation, confirm, don't do it.
It was all going to Yandex and Russian URL link shorteners and blah, blah, blah. But that could just be somebody using the global conflict to, because...
Profit, yeah.
Oh, your booking is on hold. Contact us. Don't do it. Don't contact them.
Don't even see what the link is.
You can hover, but don't click. It's a respectable 50 minutes.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Woo.
Oh, yeah.
Go get some half-price chocolate later this week.
Krista, please give the males in our audience, which you have to admit is like 99.98%.
Not that high, but it's pretty high.
Give them a hot Valentine's gift that they might not have already thought of.
Oh, like what to get for their spouse or girlfriend?
Exactly. Right? The female perspective.
I mean, it depends on the person.
Well, we're gonna do the generic answer.
My husband got me some Ferrero Rocher the other night.
How many?
Like a big
Did
box.
you eat all of them at the same time?
No, there's still a bunch at the house. They're really good though.
Those are good.
That's a good chocolate. All right, we'll see you
Kind
guys
of
then.
pricey.